So in the females, the gonads are the ovaries. And this is where oogenesis occurs. One of the fascinating things about the reproductive tract of females is that the tubes that connect the ovary to the rest of the reproductive system are not directly connected to the ovary, that there's a little space. And so when the egg is ejected from the ovary, it's during ovulation. So this is where ovulation occurs. So this is the egg ejected from the ovary. This is probably because in males and females, we have homologous structures, but we also, when we're early on during embryonic development, we actually have the ability to become male or female. So we actually have two sets of tubules. And so if you become a female, the tubule that would become your ductus deferens or your vas deferens would disintegrate. And the one that is going to become your oviduct or your fallopian tube or your uterine tube, that is the one that would stay and develop. So we have from the ovary, the egg is ejected and it's picked up by the, let's call it the oviduct. It could also be called the uterine tube and the fallopian tube. So this is my oviduct, uterine tube. This would be fallopian tube. Okay. So it has to actually create a current, and there are cells with cilia that suck the egg into the oviduct. Sometimes the egg doesn't get sucked in and it remains in the body cavity where it just disintegrates, but that's kind of a very interesting thing about the reproductive structures. So let's look at the diagram that I have here for the female reproductive tract. This right here is my ovary. This would be like my oviduct. You'll notice that it's got these like finger-like projections, right? So it is not directly connected, but it forms these fingers, fimbriae, they call them, and like a little ampulla. It kind of like a catcher's mitt, and it's going to suck the egg up into it once the egg has been released from the ovary. So this is the oviduct, and obviously there would be another one on the other side. These are paired structures. You'll notice that the ovary is up in the body cavity in the female, right? Unlike the testes, which is down in the scrotal sac. Okay, so it's very well protected. When we talk about the other structures, we have the uterus, and the uterus is very muscular. This is what is referred to as the womb, right? Very muscular. In fact, we have what is called the myometrium. So myo means a muscle. So this is smooth muscle. The lining of the uterus is called the endometrium. So this is the lining. And this is where the developing embryo will actually implant. So this is where the embryo implants. In the endometrium, in the uterus. This is not where fertilization takes place. So fertilization actually takes place, the egg and the sperm come together in the uterine tube, way up in the uterine tube. And that is necessary because the egg itself cannot survive the entire journey to the uterus. So it has to be fertilized, and then it starts to undergo mitosis, the type of cell division that produces genetically identical cells during embryonic development. So if we looked at the rest of it, I'm just going to stay on this. So this is my uterus, smooth muscle. There's also connective tissue, but this is the endometrium. Endometrium. Now there is a little structure here which blocks the uterus from the vagina, and this structure right here is called the cervix. And the cervix is important, obviously, because it keeps the developing embryo inside of the uterus. In order for the baby to come out, it has to dilate, which means it has to get big diameter, right? And it has to thin. But it also protects the female when she is not ovulating. There's actually no way for sperm to get up through the cervix because there is like a little mucus plug that would prevent sperm. So this is the separation between the vagina here and the uterus here. So this would be the vagina. You'll notice that there are two separate openings. So this is actually my bladder. So this is a female's bladder, and then this is her urethra. Notice that that is anterior. So this is where the urine comes out. This is the opening. This is actually the rectum. And so this would be the anus. And here we have a structure that is very similar to the male's bulbal urethral gland. And so this structure produces, it's called the vestibular gland, and it produces lubrication. It actually lubricates the vestibule, which is what is enclosed by the labia. So we have the vestibular gland. And this would be like the labia majora. And this is the labia minora. Now in females, we have the erectile tissue that is in the penis. We have it in a structure called the clitoris. So this is the clitoris. And this diagram does not do the clitoris justice. It is actually much bigger. And so I think that they're starting to put a different picture in textbooks these days, because there's actually a lot more erectile tissue, and it actually comes around and it kind of wraps around the urethra, just like it does in the male's penis. So if we look at the clitoris, and then this would be the male's penis, this just shows that the clitoris is not just this little part, but it actually wraps around, and it has erectile tissue, and it wraps around the urethral opening, and then this is the opening to the vagina. And so there's a lot more, and you can notice that it actually has a very similar shape to the male structure. And so we'll talk about the development of the genitalia in males and females. But so I just wanted to point out the clitoris is much bigger than it looks here in this diagram.